Over this past weekend, the Assad government in Syria collapsed. Bashar al-Assad has fled to Russia. The U.S., Israel, and Turkey have begun military strikes in Syria, with the U.S. and Israel saying they're taking out chemical weapon sites to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. Of course, there's a simple way to describe everything. If you simply pull up any news website, there's been a conversation ongoing sometime about World War III. And now we have Jamie Dimon, actually this was a month ago, but it's now being picked up once again, saying that World War III has already begun. And his financial team is taking a look at ways they can protect their assets as this war escalates into, I don't know, pure chaos. Now, of course, my view on all of this was that once Donald Trump won, well before Trump won, the establishment forces in the United States, the Uniparty, the military-industrial complex, would do everything in their power to escalate this war, which is now international, in an effort to create a crisis that Donald Trump could not prevent. And it looks like that's what we are seeing now, with the U.S. engaging in military strikes, precision strikes in Syria, Israel's involvement. You can make arguments about chemical weapons being bad, and I'm not going to sit here and defend Bashar al-Assad. This war has been going for a long time. But I also think it's important for us to recognize we are not dealing with comic book villainy. This is real-world international conflict, and there are no good guys. Certainly there are interests, and I think it's fair to say U.S. interests are better. But as we can see from the will of the American people in this past election, the interests of the American people are non-intervention and anti-war, which is why I'm not surprised that the current government has done everything seemingly in their power to make these conflicts worse. Well, Donald Trump is talking about sitting down and discussing peace deals with Zelensky and Putin. We're looking at Joe Biden pledging the U.S. will do everything in its power, including humanitarian relief to Syria in this time. It's going to get bad. Russia has a naval base in Tartus in Syria, which is one of the principal reasons for all of this. I mean, this is war with Russia. Russia's Navy has reportedly evacuated Tartus, which is massive. They're likely going to go to, I'd imagine, Sevastopol. I'm not entirely sure. But I don't think this ends with Russia simply laying down its arms and giving up. Now, there is a possibility. Nuclear war is not on the table. We don't know. I think there is a decent probability it is, but I'm not saying greater than chance. There's a few ways we can look at this. One, we don't know at all what's really going on. And seeing news reports is not really helping. Now, with the benefit of X and other social media platforms, we can see videos emerging from these locations during the war, which gives us a general idea of what is true and what is not. That being said, I read these news reports, I see what Joe Biden is saying, and for all we know, the U.S. has already secured certain areas. They're not going to tell us. We're not going to know. So, in that regard, the first and most obvious thing is the greatest probability in all of this is that we will be caught off guard as regular old civilians watching the news, having no idea what's going on. There is another possibility, and the scary one is that this escalates. With Russia being forced to evacuate Tartus, their naval base, they're now at risk of losing access to the Mediterranean entirely. Of course, they have access to the Black Sea and other areas, but they'd have to rebuild new ports. And with the expansion of this war and Ukrainian forces and Western forces in support of Ukraine, I'll be nice, attacking Russia, things are getting crazy. But Russia appears to be routed. Losing this naval base is massive. So based on the cursory information we can get as regular old people read the news, well, it seems like Russia's not in a good spot. From here, we can see another couple of possibilities. Russia reacts rather negatively. We already know that North Korea is sending troops in to aid Russia. Russia may say to China, look, we go down, you go down next. We have to come together. I mean, the BRICS nations may say no to all of this, but who knows? Some of these countries may simply be saying, do we want to go up against the United States and the Western forces? I'm not so sure. But, oh boy. We are now learning that Taiwan is on high alert because China's deployed a bunch of warships. China wants to seize control of Taiwan. There's tremendous resources and technology, and they claim that island as their own. Of course, Taiwan is actually the original government of China that was forced out of China by the communists, but yeah, that's all in the past, to be honest. So what we're looking at now is China has a strong interest in assisting Russia to keep Western forces occupied in the Middle East and Eastern Europe so that they can move in on Taiwan. It's not so simple, however, because the U.S. is still engaged in the Pacific and Australia and the U.S. have been aligned. Japan, South Korea, there is a strong potential that this would not go so easily for China if they keep the fight, even if they keep the fight in Eastern Europe. But now with the fall of Syria, it's an exacerbation of potential conflicts, and I got to say, it's quite worrying. My friends, let's break this down. The first news, I think, the important news, not this article. I got so much on this, so much going on here. I think I can just report. I mean, the Assad regime, rebels broke their way to Damascus, the capital. After seeing Homs fall, Homs, how you pronounce it, it was fairly obvious to a lot of people that Damascus would be next. Syria's capital would collapse. Bashar al-Assad would flee. This country is going to become, I don't know. I'll try to be nice, but it's going to be a dump. It's going to be flattened war zone garbage. And I don't mean that of the people, and it's sad to see. But the reality is, it is going to be flattened. The rebels are not going to run things properly. There's continuing airstrikes. We're now hearing, I believe this is true, I believe we're hearing that there's airstrikes in Damascus. The city is going to crumble, just like we saw in Libya. The people who live in this country are probably going to flee as refugees. And I can only imagine where they end up. So, my friends, let's read a little bit of the news here with the U.S. launching precision airstrikes in Syria and Joe Biden announcing humanitarian aid. I wonder if the big story, in fact, is World War III. This headline it's being rewritten, or I should republished is a better way to put it. MoneyWise reported this in November 4th. World War III has already begun. Jamie Dimon warns, says he and his team are preparing for serious conflict with Russia and China. 3 assets to protect yourself in 2025. I got to be honest. This guy's CEO of JP Morgan Chase. He told the crowd World War III was imminent and nuclear proliferation was a greater existential threat than climate change. Quote, World War III has already begun. You already have battles on the ground being coordinated in multiple countries, Dimon said at the annual event in D.C. on October 24th. This is going back 2 months. Listen, here's what I want to tell you, my friends. Money talks, BS walks. How does Nancy Pelosi make her money? She has got privy to information. You think Jamie Dimon isn't being told what's going on? This is JP Morgan Chase. They're managing billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions, probably, maybe more in their network. They need to know what's going on. Now, I'm not going to say this guy's got more intel than the United States intel community. Not that I trust them, but they know. They know what's happening. They know where boots are on the ground. They know the moves they're planning on making. I'm not saying they're good at it. I'm saying they know. We don't. Jamie Dimon comes out saying World War III has already begun. I'm going to start investing in these areas to protect my assets. I can only harken back to the story of the Napoleonic Wars. You have that story, and I'm just going to lighten it for you because I don't remember the full details. But basically, Napoleon loses. Some dude gets on his horse and runs full speed and goes and tell everybody, in fact, Napoleon has won. Stocks collapse. Everyone's in a panic. They start buying them up for pennies on the dollar. Then, turns out Napoleon lost. Stocks rebound, and they made themselves rich. Jamie Dimon, maybe he's saying this because he wants stocks to collapse, so he can buy them up for pennies on the dollar. And then when news comes out, actually, the Western forces have crushed the East and it's over and there's no world war, he's going to be very, very rich. Okay, well, plan accordingly, I guess. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but Jamie Dimon says, here's 3 assets, or I'm sorry, MoneyWise is. And, I'm not going to tell you what to invest in, but a lot of people seem to like the idea of investing where Nancy Pelosi invests. Dimon also claimed that cooperation between China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea to dismantle the Western world order far outweighed any financial issues. Western powers, including NATO allies, have been pitted against Russia. This we know. Curious timing. Dimon's alarming comments came on the same day as the conclusion of the BRICS summit, where Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa met with a group of non-Western countries in order to deepen the integration. Other countries included in the summit are Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. You know what, man? Israel, U.S., and Turkey launched strikes to protect interests in Syria. The rebels Hayat Tahrir al-Sham free prisoners of the former president Bashar al-Assad who fled to Russia. You know, it's funny, just as an aside, There's a viral video of a guy I think it's in Ireland, and there's a bunch of Syrians cheering, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on, man?" And they're like, "Bashar al-Assad, he's been defeated. Syria's free." He goes, "Oh, you're going home then?" "Well, no, we're not going to go home." And he's like, "Oh, okay, all right." That one's really funny. These Syrian refugees, they ain't leaving. They got their country back, right? Yeah, no. There's going to be more refugees. It's only going to get worse. Hey, Forbes has the story. World War III has already begun, and businesses need to take note. I don't disagree. I mean, let's ask this question. What is World War? China is making moves on Taiwan consistently, but it's soft power as of right now. You've got war in Eastern Europe. You've got undersea cables were severed. Now, they're saying it was a Chinese vessel dragging its anchor, and it severed communications in the Baltic. You've got Middle Eastern conflict escalating to let's just talk about where we're at. You've got October 7th, the war with Palestine, Israel. That's been going on for some time. But then Israel goes to war with Lebanon. Lebanon's been firing on Israel forever. This conflict isn't just starting overnight. Iran launches missiles into Israel. Israel fires back. You've got Iranian-backed proxies in Iraq attacking U.S. troops. You've got the Houthi rebels blowing up ships in the Red Sea. And now Syria's collapsed. Israel, U.S., and Turkey, they're launching strikes in Syria. I don't see this ending anytime soon. And my concern is that they're launching in the most extreme ways in an effort to make it so that Trump cannot negotiate his way out of this. I'm hearing rumors that Putin's basically he's like, Trump's not ending this. That Trump's going to come in and Trump's going to play a heavy hand saying, we will nuke you. And Russia's going to say, we have no choice. It is done. The issue being Russia is on the verge of potentially losing 2 massive naval bases in Sevastopol, and they have lost Tartus. They've likely lost it. The reports here, let me show you this one. This is Newsweek. Russian Navy evacuates second key base this year. This is from the 4th. Russia is moving vessels from its naval base in Syria amid the escalating insurgency against Bashar al-Assad. It has been reported Russia was unable to assist Assad in maintaining control of Syria because of the war in Ukraine. And so it's fair to say the war's not going very well for Russia. Now, I want to go back to what I was saying about the potentialities here. Russia could collapse and we could avoid World War III. I don't know for sure because there's a lot we don't know. But there's many pro-war individuals saying Russia will not use nukes. Russia will likely collapse. There will be an internal struggle. Putin will be removed and the country will fall, not unlike the Soviet Union. I don't know that I believe that, though. I believe that Putin, it's funny because they say, oh, Vladimir Putin is a dictator and he's a despot and all these really awful things. And I'm like, then consider what he would do if he's about to lose control of his country. Is this a guy willing to do anything to maintain the power that he has? Someone who's going to roll over? I think the dude's probably got a remote control for a nuke launcher in his pocket. And he's got another buddy that he trusts. And he basically says to everybody, you knife me in the back, we're firing every nuke we got in every direction, and you guys are included. I don't see Vladimir Putin as the kind of guy to be like, well, we'll lose power. Goodbye. Doubt it. He has said if facing an existential threat, they will fire nuclear weapons. How do you handle this? I don't know. I do not know. The Syrian port of Tartus has been a key hub for Russian vessels for more than 5 decades and has grown in importance at the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, giving Moscow a Mediterranean presence and bulwark against NATO. The port in Tartus hosts 2 Russian Gorshkov-class frigates and 1 Grigorovich-class frigate, 2 auxiliaries, and an improved Kilo-class submarine, according to Naval News. However, open-source analysts, MT Anderson posted on X, formerly Twitter, satellite imagery from November 30th and December 3rd that it said showed that Moscow had removed all vessels. They knew this was coming. This is wild stuff, man. This got me worried. Let me take you back in time, my friends, to give you some understanding of where we're at. And what I will do is I'm going to pull up an old Google Maps here so we can talk about some cursory news, I say. That means I'm not an intel guy. I don't know exactly. So if we take a look at the region, we can see, let's go over here. Let's zoom out a little bit to Russia. And here we go. So here's Syria. The reporting is that going back a long time ago, the U.S. wanted to build a natural gas pipeline from Iraq through Syria through Turkey. I wish we could remove the city names, and into Europe. This is because there's a massive gas pipeline going through Ukraine that controls about a fifth to a quarter of natural gas into Europe. It's Gazprom. I know if you've watched my shows, you've heard me talk about it quite a bit. And so what ends up happening is Syria straight up tells the U.S., we will not allow you to build this pipeline because our ally Russia would be upset that you're offsetting their gas company, Gazprom, their access to Europe. Europe is upset and the West is upset because the gas prices are too high and it's restricting the growth of the European economy. And so the U.S. says, we're building this. Well, surprise, surprise. What ends up happening is Russia and Iran say, let's tap the same natural gas field. We'll build the pipeline through Syria and Turkey. And then we have even more control in the region. Sure enough, Syria falls into civil war with the U.S. backing the rebels. And now, just before Donald Trump is to take office, the war escalates. Assad, the government collapses. And now what? Tartus is right up here. This is a Russian naval base was here. So Russia had a strong interest in protecting Syria, and that's what helped prevent Syria from collapsing. During Obama's second term, Syria was on the verge of collapse. ISIS was expanding rapidly. And the rumor is that the U.S. liked that it was happening because it was destabilizing the region. And they wanted Syria to collapse so they could come in without any real government there. They could say, oh, we're going to stabilize the region. That's what Joe Biden's saying right now. Sure enough, they waited until the last minute. And I think the reason they did was they were hoping they would win. Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, the powers that be were hoping Democrats would win and they would not have to do anything until just before the new term. Well, Biden lost. Trump won. And so they're probably making more erratic and desperate moves. The view for most people is that the CIA is the reason for the collapse of the Syrian government, which is going to be brutal. The humanitarian crisis will be one of the worst we have ever seen. It's going to rapidly expand the conflict between Israel, Hezbollah, and some are saying that it's likely going to chill those things out. Hezbollah's been crushed. Syria's been crushed. Iran's proxies are crushed. But what I mean to say is not that Israel's in a weakened state or is going to be experiencing any trouble. It's that Israel is now launching strikes into Syria, so the conflict is going to escalate. And there's a lot going on with Israel that I'm not going to get into, such as Israel's claiming of the Golan Heights. And now with Syria falling, it seems to be secured. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're asking, it has a lot to do, all of this, with they're all connected with the Burisma scandal, the war in Ukraine. It is all part of this ongoing regional conflict. And so you can see here now, Tartus is the axis in the Mediterranean, and then in the Black Sea, you have Sebastopol. I can only imagine that the Russian Navy, the vessels that fled, probably already made their way up to Sebastopol. Honestly, I don't know. They could have gone anywhere, but that seems to make the most sense. We're looking at a lot. Now, what I'm hoping for. Trump says Zelensky is ready for peace as he dishes to post on meetings with world leaders and Jill Biden. So this was reported just the other day. I'm hoping that Donald Trump can stabilize the region. I'm hoping that Donald Trump can de-escalate the war and the conflict. But my concern is with things getting as crazy as they are, Putin and the other BRICS nation leaders may just say, no, I'm sorry, a line has been crossed. Don't know for sure. Biden promises U.S. will do whatever we can to stabilize Syria after Assad regime is toppled. The United States will do whatever we can to support them, including through humanitarian relief to help restore Syria after decades of war and generations of brutality by the Assad family. Crazy days, my friends. Taiwan is now on a high alert amid a presence of Chinese warships. Nearly 90 Chinese Navy Coast Guard ships reportedly near Taiwan and southern Japanese islands. Sooner or later, those moves are going to be made. Now, look, I have no sympathy for Bashar al-Assad. I certainly don't think it's as simple to say he's a comic book villain. Here's the way it works, okay? I'm sure Assad was killing his own people. Absolutely. And you may say, Tim, that is Western propaganda. There's a lot of people who think the West, they're lying about everything. That is Western propaganda. They wouldn't kill their own people. That's stupid. And then I'm just like, my dudes, take a look at January 6th. The idea that a government would not kill, imprison, and torture its own people is laughable. Barack Obama killed a 16-year-old American citizen in Yemen at a civilian restaurant. He killed several, I think he has 4 American citizens may have been killed. The J6ers have been rounded up across the country and to this day are still being rounded up. And what did the J6ers do? They protested at the Capitol. Not even the most egregious thing you can think of. You think Bashar al-Assad wouldn't do something similar? Come on, of course he would. Now, they say he's gassing his own people and using chemical weapons. Well, I don't know, probably. I don't see a reason why he wouldn't use whatever means he had to take out rebels, which they'll then say are his own citizens, but there's collateral damage, I'm sure. I'm saying I don't like the guy. But we're not dealing with comic book villainy. There are interests at play, and history is written by the victors. In this regard, Assad is the villain bad guy. When the war first broke out, the Assad regime were using weapons like lethal force against rebels. And what was being reported was that he's killing protesters. His response was, these are terrorists trying to overthrow the government. What would you do? I mean, you're not just going to... I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I'm going to say that's what was said. And of course, I'm going to get these uniparty, neocon, neolib shield. Tim's pushing Russian propaganda. Blah, blah. Shut up. We're not children, okay? I don't think there's necessarily good guys and bad guys. Yes, to a certain degree, but it's interests. And there's Western interests, and there's BRICS, and there's NATO interests, there's BRICS interests. And so the U.S. ain't no saint. The U.S. kills its own citizens too, rounds them up and locks them up. What are you going to do? Now, that being said, I'd much prefer the U.S. to win. I don't think we should be involved in these conflicts. I think the U.S. would project more strength if we did not get involved and waste our resources, because then we would have those resources for retaliation if anything went against our interests. Instead, we're fighting in Syria. We're fighting in Ukraine. What? I don't know, man. But I don't think things are going to get easier before Trump gets in. So I'll wrap it up there. Smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Become a member over at timcast.com to support the work. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then.